There was a man named Eli who had lived many years feeling like life was always one step ahead of him and one step away from him at the same time. He was not lazy. He was not careless. He was not the kind of person who gave up easily. In fact, most people who knew him would have said he was dependable, quiet, and hardworking. But Eli carried a private sadness that he never fully explained to anyone. He had spent so long waiting for things to move that waiting had become part of his identity. He woke up, worked, prayed, hoped, and waited. Then he did it again. Some days he thought the road in front of him would never change. Some days he believed he was meant to stand still while everyone else moved forward. He did not say this out loud often, but it lived in him. Eli had once thought his life would unfold differently. He believed there would be a clear moment when everything finally began to make sense. He imagined that opportunity would come with a loud arrival, that purpose would announce itself with certainty, and that direction would appear in a way no one could miss. But life did not happen that way for him. Instead, it felt like a series of closed doors, delayed answers, and long stretches of quiet. He had applied for work and not been chosen. He had tried to build relationships and watched them fade. He had set goals and then watched the months pass before anything meaningful happened. He had prayed for a sign and often felt like the sky remained still. At first, he believed the silence meant nothing was happening. That thought slowly wore him down. Every delay seemed like a warning. Every closed door seemed like a rejection. Every unanswered prayer seemed like proof that the path ahead was blocked. He tried to stay strong, but the pressure of uncertainty can wear even the strongest heart thin. Some mornings he felt ready to keep going. Some nights he felt like stopping altogether. He did not want to give up, but he also did not know how to keep trusting when the road stayed hidden. Then one evening, after another long day, Eli sat alone near the window in a small room. The sky outside was dark, and the house around him was quiet. He had just finished a day that felt ordinary on the outside, but heavy on the inside. He had done his work. He had handled his responsibilities. He had tried to stay positive. Yet his heart was tired from carrying questions that had no quick answer. He leaned back, looked into the darkness beyond the glass, and felt the weight of his waiting more deeply than before. In that still moment, a thought came to him with peace. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was calm and simple. The path opens when it's time. He sat with those words for a long while. They felt gentle, but they also felt strong. For years, he had been treating the closed road in front of him as if it were a wall meant to defeat him. But now he sensed something different. Maybe the path had not been blocked forever. Maybe it had only been closed for a while. Maybe the silence had not been a punishment. Maybe it had been preparation. Maybe what he had called delay was really a hidden process of clearing the way. The next morning was still ordinary. Nothing dramatic happened. No sudden breakthrough fell from the sky. The bills were still there. The questions were still there. The uncertainty was still there. But Eli was different. He no longer saw the waiting as a sign that he had been forgotten. He began to see it as part of a larger design. He started to think that paths do not open randomly. They open when the ground is ready, when the heart is ready, when the timing is right, and when God has already worked in the unseen places. That thought changed the way he moved through his day. He began to notice how often he had been trying to force things. He had tried to push doors with panic. He had tried to hurry what needed time. He had tried to create progress out of fear. But fear is a poor guide. It makes a person grab too quickly and trust too little. Eli realized he had spent too much energy fighting the process instead of learning from it. So he made a quiet decision. He would stop treating every delay as an enemy. He would start asking what the delay was teaching him. That question made room for wisdom. He looked at his past more honestly. He saw that some of the closed doors had kept him from places he was not ready to carry. Some of the things he thought he had lost had actually prevented greater pain. Some of the moments that disappointed him had also protected him from choices that would have damaged his peace. He had once called those moments failure. Now he began to understand that not every no is rejection. Sometimes it is direction. Sometimes it is redirection. Sometimes it is a rescue. Sometimes it is God clearing the path in ways the human eye cannot yet recognize. This did not mean the waiting was easy. It was still waiting. He still had bills to pay and responsibilities to keep. He still had dreams that were not yet visible. He still had days when discouragement rose. But now there was a small light inside him that had not been there before. He no longer believed the road was dead. He believed it was being prepared. He started carrying himself differently. He became more patient with people and less harsh with himself. He stopped comparing his pace to the pace of others. That was important because comparison had been stealing his peace for a long time. He would look at others and think they were ahead while he remained behind. But he finally realized that different journeys do not move at the same speed. Some people walk on roads that are already open. Some are walking while the path is still being made. That does not make one person better than another. It only means the process is different. The change in Eli's thinking began to affect his habits. He woke earlier. He used his mornings more intentionally. He spent less time complaining and more time preparing. He started reading more, praying more honestly, and taking practical steps toward the things he wanted. He did not do this with the pressure of trying to control everything. He did it with the calm that comes when a person believes their season is not wasted. He knew now that preparation matters. If the path opens and a person is not ready, they can walk through it poorly. But if they have been learning, growing, and waiting with faith, then when the door opens, they are ready to move. One day a small opportunity came his way. It was not huge. It did not solve everything, but it was a movement. It was a sign that something had shifted. Someone remembered his name. Someone noticed his effort. Someone offered him a chance to be part of something useful. In the past, Eli might have doubted himself and hesitated. He might have felt unworthy or afraid, but now he accepted the opportunity with humility. He did not treat it like a final answer. He treated it like a first step. That step mattered more than he first understood. As he entered the new work, he saw that the waiting had shaped him for this moment. He was more patient with people, more careful with decisions, and more willing to learn. He no longer rushed to prove himself. He listened. He observed. He stayed steady. These qualities made people trust him more, and they also helped him trust himself. He began to see that the hidden season had not been empty. It had built things inside him that were now useful. He remembered how often he had prayed for the path to open. What he had not understood then was that open paths are not only about reaching a destination. They're also about becoming the kind of person who can walk the road well. If a path opens too early, a person may run into trouble before they are ready. If it opens at the right time, the same road can become a blessing. Eli began to see his own life through that lens. He realized that timing was not the enemy. Timing was mercy. There were still moments when doubt visited him. On some days, the old voice came back and asked whether he was really making progress. Some nights, he wondered whether the small gains were enough. Some mornings he felt the familiar pressure of wanting more, wanting faster, wanting clearer. But now he had a different way of answering those thoughts. He would remind himself that even a path that opens slowly is still opening. A seed does not become a tree overnight. A road is not built in one afternoon. Growth has its own rhythm. So does God's work in a person's life. He also became more gentle with others who were waiting. He had once judged people who seemed stuck because he had not yet learned how deep waiting can go. Now he knew better. He saw that some people are not lazy. They are tired. Some are not careless. They are carrying too much. Some are not behind. They are being prepared. Eli's compassion deepened because his understanding deepened. He stopped telling people to hurry up and started telling them to hold on. He stopped saying, "Why are you still there?" and started saying, "The road may be opening more than you can see." One afternoon, he visited an older man in the neighborhood who had lived through many hardships and still carried a quiet peace. The older man listened to Eli speak about his waiting and his frustration. He did not interrupt. He let him finish. Then he said something that stayed with Eli for a long time. He said that when a path opens, it often opens first in the heart. The outside changes after the inside has already begun to shift. Eli thought about that deeply. He had been waiting for visible proof while God had been working on the internal road that led to the visible one. That was the pattern of his life. He thought back over the months and years. He saw how the waiting had changed him from inside out. He had become more patient because impatience could not carry him through. He had become more responsible because responsibility was necessary for the road ahead. He had become more peaceful because panic would have made him miss what God was doing. He had become more aware because awareness helped him see the signs he once overlooked. All of this had been building while he was still calling it delay. This realization brought him relief. He no longer believed his life was standing still. He believed it was moving in ways he had not fully understood. The path opening was not only a future event, it was already happening in hidden places. The changes in his heart were part of the path opening. The new discipline was part of the path opening. The small opportunities were part of the path opening. The peace he felt was part of the path opening. He had been asking for a door, but God was also preparing the person who would walk through it. That was the wisdom hidden in his season. Eli also learned that not every open path looks grand at first. Sometimes it looks small. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it begins with one phone call, one conversation, one task, one lesson, one chance, one step. But small openings matter because they reveal movement. They show that the road is no longer closed the way it once was. Eli learned not to despise small beginnings. He learned to honor them. He understood that many beautiful journeys begin with simple steps that seem almost too quiet to matter. He became more careful with his expectations too. Before, he expected life to fix itself in dramatic ways. Now he understood that growth is usually steady rather than sudden. He no longer needed every answer at once. He only needed to keep walking with faith. The path would reveal itself in time. He did not have to force the whole future into the present. That kind of pressure had once drained him. Now he preferred trust. Trust gave him room to breathe. His family noticed the change. He carried less stress in his voice. He smiled more freely. He no longer seemed locked in the same frustration. His mother, who had known him through many seasons, saw that his face had softened. She knew that something deep had changed in him. She did not ask for a long explanation. She simply thanked God quietly, because she could see that her son was not the same man who once believed the road would never move. As time passed, more things began to line up. The little opportunity led to a larger one. The larger one led to more stability. The work he had once feared he might never get became an area where he could grow. He was not suddenly rich. He was not suddenly free from every problem, but he was no longer trapped in the same place. The path had opened, not all at once, not in a way he could have forced. It opened at the right time, and the right time carried wisdom. Eli looked back and understood that the waiting had not been a loss. It was a teacher. It had taught him to be still without becoming hopeless. It had taught him to pray without panic. It had taught him to prepare while trusting. It had taught him to value growth over hurry. That was the real gift of his journey. The path opened after he had become ready to walk it. He began to share this message with others who felt stuck. He told them not to quit too soon. He told them not to call the road closed just because they could not see the next mile. He told them that some paths open slowly because God is also opening the person walking them. He told them that waiting can be holy if it is full of trust. He told them that what feels like a delay may be the very thing that prepares the strength you will need later. That was the heart of his guidance. The path opens. It may not open when you demand it. It may not open in the shape you expected. It may not open loudly. But when the time is right, it opens. And if you have been learning, praying, growing, and staying faithful, you will be ready for what is ahead. Eli's life became a testimony to that truth. He had once stood in the dark, believing there was no way forward. Now he could look back and see the line of grace that had been leading him all along. The waiting had built patience. The silence had built trust. The closed doors had built discernment. The struggle had built endurance. And now the road was open. That is the message this story leaves behind. If you are waiting, do not despair. If you're tired, do not quit. If the road has been quiet, do not assume it is forever closed. Keep your heart steady. Keep your hands ready. Keep your faith alive. The path opens in time, and when it opens, it will carry you farther than fear ever could. So walk forward with peace. The road ahead is not finished. It is unfolding.